A low-key launch for Chanel in Paris 2 years ago. Few embraced the drama of the catwalk more than Karl Lagerfeld, or understood the voracious appetite for the new.
You know, for me, the fashion eternity is 6 months. So you don't know, it's 6 months and 6 months and 6 months. I vaguely know my job, but there's still a lot I can learn. It always can improve, and as long as I have the feeling I can still learn, even for myself, or improve my work, I think it's a good thing to do it.
We should all feel this appreciated at the office.
Thank you everybody.
But it wasn't all air kisses at Lagerfeld's atelier. He was known as the Kaiser after his German origins. A sense of how clothes work together seems to have been second nature.
Always. I always was interested in fashion, even before I knew that it was called fashion. Clothes and what people used to wear was always something was fascinated me.
The Kaiser could be cutting, even without his trusty pinking shears in his hands. What did he make of fashions in London?
I like more the idea of English fashion than of the reality of English fashion. And that is very sad in a way, because they're great for ideas, but they don't know how to make really business out of that.
How do you mean?
I mean, English fashion is like wine. It doesn't travel as well as French fashion does.
Lagerfeld settled in Paris, where he eventually took control of the prestigious but faded House of Chanel.
When I took over the house, the owner said to me, you know, for the moment it's not very trendy. I'm not really proud of it. Do what you want. If it works, okay. If it doesn't work, I sell it. But it worked beyond.
In fact, he revived the house beyond anyone's expectations, returning Chanel to the heights. And even more impressively, seeing his extraordinary project through, year after year, season after unforgiving season. Though there were a few back-to-the-drawing-board moments. As, for instance, when he made some apparently unflattering remarks about our own Adele.
I said she was a little round. And she cannot say it's not round, it's not an insult. They translated it into fat. I never said that. So, and then the French even worse. That's ridiculous. But what means that I was not totally wrong. After all, she went on a diet. I saw in some magazine that she went down 8 kilos. That's not a bad thing. Oh, yeah.
Not for Lagerfeld, a mouthful of pins and a sewing machine in a back room. He was an impresario, as much director as designer. To hear him tell it, it all came effortlessly.
I just do what my inner voices tell me. I'm the Joan of Arc of design.
He pronounced everything as if he was God. You know, he'd say, this is how it's going to be, or this is how it should be. And he always did things with such style.
In the days when you still heard people wonder out loud about what women might want, Karl Lagerfeld seemed to know the answer.
Luxury lives on desire. It's unnecessary. You need potatoes and bread to eat, but you don't need luxury. So that's why you spend more for that.
Well, Steve Smith, who with me now is the former editor-in-chief of Vogue, Alexandra Shulman. Thank you for coming in. You observed Karl Lagerfeld at work. How do you think he turned the brand around from Chanel, which was a kind of slightly stuffy brand, and there he revolutionised it?
Well, it was the early 80s, and I think he took on a brand that was a very kind of, to use his word, bourgeois brand, which had become so. Of course, when Coco Chanel started it, it was revolutionary in its own way, but it had become sort of a bit hidebound. And I think he realized that the kind of the spirit of the times, which was a sort of celebration of money and opportunity and ostentation, he could do something like that with Chanel.
And he did that, but then he kept the tweed jacket, didn't he?
Oh, he kept everything that was there. He kept the cardigans, kept the tweed jacket, he kept the little quilted bags. I mean, he took what was the raw ingredient and made it kind of supersonic.
And he did that as well by, I mean, you can call them muses, but he actually embraced the idea of, you know, the kind of very iconic models, people that weren't just models, people like Lily Allen, all sorts of people that he enticed into the brand.
Well, he liked having famous people as part of Chanel. He realised that we live in an age, and have done for some time, of celebrity, and Karl was one of the first people to take advantage of that.
He also was, I mean, a great draftsman. His drawing was phenomenal, but also a serious photographer. And I think that you think that he, in a sense, was ahead of Instagram.
I think that with Instagram, he realised that with shows, he had an opportunity to reach people way beyond the people who were just seeing the show, and to make the shows into something that everybody could look at on their mobile phone in these perfect little cubes. But before that, he looked at life in that way, in an Instagram way, a kind of visually striking moment. I mean, you only have to look at how he looks himself, or looked himself. He made himself into a very visually striking moment.
He didn't avoid getting caught up in the Me Too movement. What, you know, I think it was, would he not say something about, you know, if models don't want to have their pants pulled down or something like that, they should go to a nunnery. I mean, and that he got into serious trouble for that from people in the Me Too movement. But what was he really like?
Well, he certainly didn't have a politically correct filter on him. And he would just say what he wanted to say and what he thought would change all the time as well. I think that he really saw life in bite-sized moments, and he was very interested, very, very clever, very interested in history, very interested in culture, and he knew how things moved on, and he knew how to take ingredients from everywhere and kind of feed them into the brand of Chanel.
He also worked incredibly hard. I mean, Chanel was his life. It became his life.
Well, Chanel and
Fendi as well.
Chanel, Fendi, and Karl Lagerfeld. But he also was very interested in art, and as you say, not just the photography which he did for campaigns, but he did really beautiful kind of private photography as well. I don't think he slept.
Ever?
Well, he certainly was he was an owl. I mean, he would be up all night, but I suspect he slept a couple of hours.
But driven and constantly driving Chanel particularly forward. You know, fashion houses have lots of different leaders at different times, but he's been there since 1983. It's a very hard act to follow with Chanel.
Yeah, I mean, he's done an amazing job with Chanel, and I think Chanel is one of the, if not the only, maybe there are 2, possibly 3 brands who are recognised all over the world like his. And you may have liked what Karl did, or you might not have liked what Karl did, but you certainly have to admire the way that he kept Chanel right at the top of the tree all the way through.
Alex Shulman, thanks very much indeed.